Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Ruth O'Rourke, the NSM Delta Chair Board of Governors. I want to welcome everybody to our 5 Points of Honor virtual speaker series. We are in week 2 with our third speaker, Joe Mendez, General Manager of Riverton Country Club and also a Board of Directors for Club Managers Association of America, CMAA. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to do a formal introduction, and then we'll get started. We have a little bit of a video tour, and then we'll come back together for a presentation, and then we'll open up for Q&A. In the meantime, you can also, on the chat area off to your right, you can go ahead and type in a question. If you have a question for Joe, that'd be awesome. So this is, again, being recorded, and Joe, it's all yours. Thank you again for participating.
Thanks, Ruth. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint and put it in a slideshow, so I'm not going to see you all for a few minutes while we go through that. And part of that, I'm going to share a video with you, but I'll be able to kind of talk over it. Sorry, got to go back. So I am the general manager at Riverton Country Club here in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. I'm also a national director for CMAA, Club Management Association of America, as well as the director on the Philadelphia and Vicinity Club Management Association, both chapter board and the Philadelphia Club Foundation board. So I get a little bit involved in things that probably too much. I joined here just in January, and prior to that, I've been at a bunch of positions in food and beverage and country club management as GM COO at a couple of other clubs, as an assistant GM at Woodford Country Club, and then as a manager at various locations. So doing Kurt's House, the Union League of Philadelphia, which is the top club in the country, the Lenape Inn, and I did my graduate internship at Radisson Plaza Warwick Hotel in Human Resources. I received my bachelor's degree in hospitality from Widener, and I talked about the boards I sit on. And in addition to that, I was on the advisory board for the hospitality program at Widener, and I sit on a local foundation board called Team CMMD Foundation, which raises money to help people whose lives have been impacted by cancer. So I was asked today to talk about leadership as that point of honor. You see on the left there how student chapters of Eta Sigma Delta should use leadership. And what I really would like to do is take you on a little bit of a tour of Riverton Country Club and tell you a little bit about me and the club, and then we can come back together when this video is over. So. My name is Joe Mendez, and welcome to Riverton Country Club.
Yeah.
Joining you today. I look forward to our
I don't think they can see your screen.
What's that?
I don't think they can see your screen. I'm going to go ahead and open it. It's okay. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I can see it on, yeah, if that doesn't work, I'll just go direct to YouTube and play it. And welcome. I can share it on YouTube if you'd like, Ruth.
Go right ahead. You can go ahead and just hit share screen.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
My name is Joe Mendez, and welcome to Riverton Country Club. Humbled and honored to be joining you today. I look forward to our Q&A at the end. I'm the general manager here at the Riverton Country Club in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. I want to tell you a little bit about me first. I want to tell you a little bit about the club. I want to take a tour throughout the facility. And then while I'm giving you the tour, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what leadership has been like, especially during our current pandemic, and what it means to lead people through crisis. I am an alumnus of Widener University and also a Sigma Delta. So congratulations to all of you. I know how much hard work, energy, and effort it took to get here, and you all deserve to be congratulated for that. I am at what's called a CCM, Certified Club Manager, and CCE, Certified Chief Executive. Those are educational distinctions earned through the Club Management Association of America, CMAA. So you'll hear me talk about CMAA a lot because I'm very actively involved. I sit on the local Philadelphia and vicinity chapter board of CMAA, also the Philadelphia Club Foundation Board, which is the charitable contribution or charitable arm of CMAA in Philadelphia. I'm also fortunate and blessed to be a national director of CMAA, and I get to participate in running the organization both in the United States as well as our consultation with education throughout the world. So the standard of excellence in education and club management is through CMAA, and we have taken that education and translated it out through various groups that have formed around the world: Canada, Europe, Australia, China, you name it. Just about anywhere you can find a private club, there is a derivative of CMAA with a very similar name, and they follow exactly our education standards, and they earn the same education criteria that we do, and they can become a certified club manager, a certified chief executive, a master club manager, and all of the other things that are involved. So I'm very happy, fortunate, and blessed to be a part of that. Riverton Country Club in St. Vincent, we were founded in 1900. So while we're in St. Vincent now, the original clubhouse was in the town of Riverton, and it's the name Riverton Country Club. In 1916, they decided to go from a 9-hole golf course to an 18-hole golf course and hired the world famous Donald Ross to design the course. We're truly proud of the heritage of the Donald Ross golf course, and we are 3/4 of the way through a restoration project on that course to bring it back to its original splendor. We can't wait to get it finished, and our members are thrilled with the results so far. The original clubhouse, which no longer exists, sat next to what is our bowling alley, and we'll go visit that in Riverton at some point throughout the tour. We have multiple dining rooms, banquet facilities, swimming pool, tennis courts, and of course, the class of the operation is our golf course. Welcome to the beautiful and picturesque golf course at Riverton Country Club. The course was designed in 1916 by world famous golf course architect Donald Ross. In 2004, the club set about creating a master plan to restore the Donald Ross golf course to its original splendor. That restoration plan is almost completed, and we expect to be finished the final holes in 2021. Riverton Country Club is proud of the heritage of Donald Ross and the golf course that we have, and as you can see, it is an amazing sight to behold. One of the really unique features of our golf course is that there is a confluence in the middle of our 4th fairway. So about 3 or 4 yards off of the rough, along the 4th fairway, we have the meeting of 40 degrees north and 75 degrees west. Visitors from around the country and sometimes around the world will come by to see the granite marker that marks that unique feature that most golf courses don't have anywhere in the world. In addition to the spectacular golf course here at Riverton Country Club, we have several other amenities that I'd like to tell you about and show you. First, we have 4 hard tennis courts. Those courts are available from mid-March through mid-November. Our head tennis professional runs a very active and vibrant ladies and men's and mixed tennis program. Additionally, we have really strong junior tennis camps that go throughout the summer. Finally, we have our great swimming pool environment. We have the Riverton Wave swim team. The pool is active 7 days a week throughout the summer, from morning through night, and we have many activities. So here we are in the Hemingway dining room. This is our formal dining space, as you can see by the tablecloth service and the formal setting in the dining room. This is the room with the greatest view. In fact, as they redid the clubhouse many years ago, they gutted everything and left this room and rebuilt the clubhouse around the room because of the spectacular views through the windows out to the golf course. Our members love the space, are proud of it, and actually it's called the Hemingway Dining Room because Gail McFadden, Hemingway McFadden donated a significant amount of money to help with the renovation of this dining room. So we talked a little bit about that before. The members here love to support the club,
And as a leader, it's a great thing when you have people that are fully invested and you can capitalize on that passion and that investment that they want to make in your operation. So for me, instead of looking at it as, well, we can take care of it ourselves, we don't need your money. As a leader, I want to say, I want to capture your passion, I want to harness it, and I want to use it to make the organization so much better. So we've been able to do that over the years with the Friends of Riverton, where members will raise funds, donate, and put all that together and help the club get better and improve upon what we have. So I love this space. I love this great view of the sunny golf course behind me. And I can't wait till we're back in full mode operation. And this is full of people on a vibrant Friday night and golfers all over the golf course. Joining you now from our Chris Dining Room, that's spelled K-R-I-S-S, named after the Chris family who helped donate some money to build the room when it first was built. It was recently renovated, and actually right before we closed for the pandemic, we installed new tile flooring in the room. This is our family center dining room, and then any day of the week you can come in here when we're open and we're not in pandemic mode, and find families dining from lunch all the way through dinner. We're open 6 days a week, Tuesday through Sunday. So this is a great space. I apologize for it not being up to the standard that it normally would be, but obviously we've been in shutdown mode. And so as we go through our tour, you're going to see the place in various stages of non-openness. Here we are in Gin Mill Bar on a normal Saturday, this time of year, on a bright sunny day. Even though it is a little bit cold and we actually had some snow a little bit west of us today in May, this will be full of people right now. Every stool at the bar will be full of golfers who've come off or having something to eat, maybe a drink, as well as the tables will be full of people either just coming off of the golf course or getting ready to go out and golf in the afternoon. This space is probably our most popular space. You come here on a Thursday night when we do raffles, it's standing room only, and you can barely get through the room. The members love the environment, they love the space here, and we do everything we can to keep it up to the level that they expect. And we're really excited about it and potentially expanding it. So, going back to leadership, one of the things we talked about was what do the members want and how do we make it better, right? So what are the things that we do the best and how can we do even more of that? So what we've looked at is actually knocking out the wall that's behind me, expanding the space to about 2 or 3 times its size, and really creating a gigantic kind of real casual sports bar gathering space where everyone wants to come hang out, watch sports. Big Philadelphia Eagles club this is, a couple of players and some other people are members, both current and former, and a lot of season ticket holders at the club. They really love their sports here, and so trying to give them even a bigger, better space to be able to enjoy that is something that as the leader of the organization, I'm looking to accomplish and to continue to take our strengths and be even better at those things. Thank you for joining me on the tour today. I look forward to our chat after the video is over. Have a great day.
Awesome video. Thank you for taking the time to give us a tour of your beautiful club and what has happened over the years and the generous donations of your club members to make it happen for them.
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we're going to open up to Q&A. So students have been writing questions in the Q&A. I'm going to read them off to you so you don't have to worry about getting into the chat box yourself. So I'll kind of a question for you. Early on, Jake had asked, how will the club industry alter its events to ensure the safety of its guests after the pandemic?
Well, certainly. So, we started, probably a week or 2 before we shut down, beginning to design plans of what things were going to look like, forecasting out financial scenarios of, what was coming. It was becoming more and more obvious that closing operations was going to be part of the situation. And since then, we've continued to update. And we probably, we just found out, I told Ruth at about an hour and 10 minutes ago that as of Friday, we can reopen tennis and go from 2 golfers to 4 at a time. So we continue to take all of that information in. We work closely with CMAA National, which has worked with the PGA, the Golf Course Owners Association, the Golf Course Superintendents, and a whole bunch of other national associations to develop, along with the CDC, some really great guidelines for how to run your operations. There's a great 30-page document on how to reopen a clubhouse and a whole bunch of other things. So we are taking all of that in, constantly evaluating our plans and always looking for things to do, changing cleaning patterns, spacing obviously in spaces. We don't anticipate dining coming indoors for quite some time. So we think we have a little more time to figure out what that's going to look like. We imagine outside dining first and the pool probably after that. And then indoor dining is probably July. If I were to guess, maybe July, maybe August before we see that come back.
Okay, great. Next question. In the situation where demand is down for the hospitality industry, how would a club adapt to maintain the same level of profit they would prior to the shutdown of the economy?
Sure. So obviously we forecast this year to not come close to what our budgeted profit would be. Our fiscal year starts April 1st. So we literally opened our fiscal year closed completely with only takeout food available, which is not anywhere close to a money-making venture for us. It's more of a service to our members. And what we've done a lot of is try to create value to our members, because a club business is a dues business, right? So the golf revenue and the food and beverage revenue, all of those other things are great, but what really is the lifeblood and what keeps clubs alive is the dues revenue. And so we've tried to do everything we can to create as much value, daily connections, video tips, virtual. We did a virtual wine tasting Friday night. We do virtual fitness stuff. You name it, we're doing it to keep everyone connected and have them stay a member, because that's first and foremost what's going to keep us from becoming unprofitable. We're in a unique environment in clubs in that we're not looking to make a profit. We reinvest everything. We don't have a company that owns us because we're member owned and we're a not-for-profit under the IRS tax guidelines. We're a 501c7. Gave us a little challenge in that we were ineligible for the payroll protection program portion of the CARES Act. So we were not able to keep everyone employed and keep them on payroll as other organizations may have. But as long as we keep our membership base high and keep our dues level where it is, which we've been able to do so far, we think we'll be good. And we actually believe that the club business is uniquely positioned within hospitality and allowing people to feel that it's a safe location to begin their first steps of venturing back out into society and beginning to go to entertainment venues, that everyone's such a family here that people feel like it's just a big extension of their family, and it's not necessarily getting on an airplane and going to a hotel or to a restaurant where you don't always know everybody. So we think we're strongly positioned, and we believe we'll be in a good spot at the end of this.
Great. Okay, so going back to the events question, talking about your typical small gatherings, separate tables, having your serving staff wash their hands more frequently. Can you just talk a little bit about, even though I know you mentioned indoors is probably not happening until July, can you just talk a little bit about your thoughts on what you're hearing maybe other clubs are doing?
Yeah, so we have mandatory masks indoors, temperature checks for employees on arrival, frequent hand washing. We have signs all over with CDC guidelines on hand washing frequency. We have a really limited team working right now. Out of a normal, this time of year, we'd be about 110 employees. We only have 30 on property at this point in time. We again have all kind of felt like we're quarantined together in effect, because we're all together every day, all day, the same people over and over again. But we definitely have those things, and we had put them in place previously. We have an outside company coming in preparation for reopening to do a really deep clean, sanitize, to kind of get us back to a standard before we open the doors to let people in the door as well. So, but the idea of masks and gloves and, in dining rooms and at golf cart staging areas and, a grounds crew that has to wear masks when they're all inside in the morning, getting their daily chores before they go out onto the golf course. And if they're working in teams, they have to keep their masks on. And that certainly is all new and all things that we're doing. And I'm sure that will continue to evolve as we move forward.
Okay, thank you. Question from Melanie. I'm curious to know the types of incentive programs that you're offering your club members so that they stay members of your club and also continue to bring in new members.
So believe it or not, we have not offered any incentive to our current members to stay other than we've continued to engage them in a lot of things in terms of takeout. We've partnered with a local meat purveyor, Ashley Foods, and with no markup to the club, we've coordinated them to be able to order protein packages that get delivered to the club, and they can just come here and get trunk delivery of that stuff with no money made by us. Same with a produce vendor, in efforts to keep them from having to A, go to grocery stores, and B, then find that they can't find what they need when they get to the grocery store. So we've done those things, but we haven't offered any financial incentive. We have our normal recommendation financial incentive. So if they sponsor a member, they get a dues credit of a certain amount based on what category that member is, anywhere from $250 at the lowest level up to $1,000 at the highest level. But that's not a result of COVID-19 or the current situation. That's a normal process of rewarding members who sponsor people to come in. We actually had 3 people join last week, even without full operation. So we feel strongly that we're in a good spot, and we have not looked to devalue the membership by offering special deals and incentives.
Good to hear about the 3 new members.
Yeah.
A question from Parker, how do you guys plan to transition things slowly back to, I guess, normal or next to normal or new normal once the pandemic mode is starting to come to an end?
So as we've done with golf, what we have done is get a small working group to develop a baseline document in terms of what procedures and policies will look like in a particular space. So we've done it at golf, done it with tennis, with pool, same with dining, clubhouse. And then we take that document once we feel it's in a good spot and share it with the committee at the club that represents that space, just for an opportunity for additional feedback. And then we wait for the governor to tell us what we're really allowed to do, and we modify the final version of that document based on what is actually approved. So an example would be golf. We had it all set up, ready to go. We thought it would be foursomes at 12-minute intervals that would space it out. Normally they're foursomes at 8-minute intervals on a golf course. We were all ready to go, and then the governor's announced at 1 p.m. that we would be able to start playing golf in 4 days, and then at 7:30 that night, he released the actual body of his executive order, which said only 2 golfers at a time and every 16 minutes. So at 9:30 that night, that small working group was back on a Zoom call, completely modifying the document because it had to get back out to the members by 9 o'clock the next morning, because the tee sheet was opening up at 10 o'clock the next morning, and we had to let them know what the rules of engagement, so to speak, were for getting onto the golf course. So that's how we'll handle that with every space. We'll try to imagine every scenario. We'll put it in writing. We'll have a phase 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of each space, and then we'll modify it once the actual rules come out to tell us what we can and cannot do.
Great. Next question from Brittany. What is your best piece of advice to those students who hope to one day be a general manager at a country club?
So I always tell students in hospitality, or really in any area where you think you want to manage people, is to take as many psychology and sociology electives as you can, because that's what managing people is all about. And if you don't understand people and know how to relate and communicate with them, you're never going to be successful as a manager. So for me, that's a baseline, no matter what field of endeavor you go in, hospitality. On the club side, I would suggest that, there has to be a passion for developing deep connections with individuals, because you do that in our business. We get to know multiple generations of families. We know everything about them, grandparents down to grandkids, and often great grandparents and great grandkids, and where they all went to school and what they do and what they like and where they like to sit and what they like to drink, and when they come visit every year. I mean, there's so many things we know about so many people that if you have that passion, you're always going to be successful in the club business to connect with others.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What does your typical day look like?
Not many days are typical, especially now. Although I would adjust that. I think it feels more routine today than it does in a normal full-blown operations, because we're doing so many limited things that we kind of just do the same thing over and over again. So it feels a little Groundhog Day-ish right now, but in a normal scenario in the country club business, it's, you know, show up, greet the office. I've typically, you know, from home already logged in and looked at email and made sure there was nothing pertinent or important that had to get dealt with first thing right away in the morning. I then begin kind of a walk around the property or a tour around the property and visit all of the amenities, talk to the department heads and leaders in the organization to see what's going on with them. And, you know, I try to walk around as a guest to see things, to look for opportunities for us to make things better. And so I do that as well. I try to get 2 or 3 other department heads to do the same for me. As a person who visits the property every day, we often don't see it the same way as a person walking in the door for the first time does. So we really try to intentionally do that. And so that's a big part of my day, is trying to look at it as a guest or a member might look at it as they walk in the door, and look for chances to be better or do what we do better, do more of what we do better. So, and then from there, it just gets into people reaching out and wanting to talk to me. So usually my day is consumed by, you know, a member calling, interactions in dining rooms, talking to people at the first tee, getting feedback, talking to department heads, and then looking out what's coming up. What are we working on? You know, what deadlines do different folks have to get information to us so that we can execute on the things we need to execute. So, you know, as a leader of a club, I look at my job really as a support staff, so to speak, for the 7 department heads that report to me. And it's my job to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful and to put them into the best possible position to be successful, and then to kind of get out of their way and let them be successful.
Okay, a question's coming in about special events, and what would a day look like for someone who is working in special events or the event side for your club?
Sure. So we're fairly active banquet event property, about $700,000 in event sales for a small to medium sized club. It's a pretty good number. And to be honest, it could be, you know, 5 events in a day some days, and it could be no events in a day and really making plans and preparations for what's coming, because 5 are going to be happening on Friday or Saturday. So it's either planning mode for a day, reaching out to those people who are having events and talking to them about counts and preferences and just tightening up last minute things, and are they going to be delivering anything that needs to be set up in advance of their event, those types of things. Or then it's actually executing on ensuring the staff is ready to go, that they have all of the details they need to make the event successful, and then of course working with and greeting the person who scheduled the event and ensuring their satisfaction that day.
Okay, thank you. What obstacles has management had to with its hourly and temporary staff members? Sorry. What did you hear me? What obstacles
Yeah.
with hourly and temporary staff members?
So we were fortunate in not having to utilize temporary staff members. So we have kind of all of our staff is with us, and we're busy enough to keep them either full-time or part-time engaged on a regular basis. The challenge for us, as I mentioned, when Congress passed HR 748, I think is the actual House of Representatives bill number, with the CARES Act, as everyone knows it. There was a provision in there called the Paycheck Protection Program, which allowed organizations for less than 500 employees to retain all of your employees on payroll and to get a loan to cover the cost of that payroll, which would then be forgiven. So basically the government was paying your payroll for you for a period of time during the pandemic. When they wrote that law, they only included 2 501c organizations. So 501c organizations are tax exempt in the IRS tax code. So 501c3s are the ones everybody would know very well. They're things like American Cancer Society and Make-A-Wish and Parkinson's Foundation and all of those things that do great works of charitable fundraising to help support all kinds of things that need financial support. they were included. And then 501c19s, which are veterans-based organizations, they were included. The remainder of us that are 501c organizations, and the two primary ones excluded, that are the largest sections of that, are 501c7s, which are private member-owned clubs that are not for profit, and 501c6s, which are associations. So Eta Sigma Delta would be, I'm imagining, a 501c6. The Club Management Association, CMAA, is a 501c6. And there are a number of reasons why. And so, but the end result was we didn't have the luxury of keeping everyone employed. So having to call 62 people on the telephone and let them know they were being furloughed was probably our hardest day as a organization. And my probably hardest day ever as a leader of an organization was to be on the phone with people who didn't deserve not to be working and having to tell them that for some period of time they were not going to be able to be employed by the club. So that's our biggest challenge. The good news was, for a lot of those people, the $600 a week additional offering from the federal government means they're actually making more money not working, sitting at home, than they would be if we were keeping them employed. So the majority of them understood it and embraced it. So those were the challenges. The positive of being in a club was our members wanted to make sure the employees were so aware that they matter so much to us that they voluntarily created an employee assistance fund, and in 3 weeks raised $43,000 that they handed out in cash as financial support to those employees during the time that they're laid off.
So it's pretty impressive and generous of the members. So, okay, outside of COVID, here's a question. What's the most stressful time or event of the year, and why is it different than any other events that you would host?
So in the country club world, if you have golf, it's got to be your men's member guest weekend. It's a 3-day event. It's the showcase event of the club. It is 3 days of a lot of golf, a lot of food and beverage, emphasis on the beverage, and members bringing guests to show off their club to their friends from around the country and sometimes around the world. And so it's 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., 3 straight days. The golf course has to be in great shape. You pray with everything you have that the weather holds out and you have good weather, because you don't have any control over that. So that adds significantly to the stress in advance. And, you always just pray that things go well. You don't get rain at the wrong time to delay rounds or cause a problem. And, that all your food deliveries come in a timely manner, because you can't possibly store the amount of food you need in that weekend all at once. So you can't get a delivery on Thursday for the whole weekend. You're getting multiple deliveries. And so I think that's our most stressful time on an annualized basis. It's a 3-day event, but it's probably 60 days in advance of that where the stress level begins to escalate up until the weekend. And then Sunday, after it's over, is a big heave of relief. So that's the normal biggest stress. I would think, the other time is really in advance of that. So probably March, as we're hiring. So when you hire seasonal staff, when you have a seasonal operation like we do, and you have to ramp up and down every year, it gets a little stressful making sure you find you either return really great people or you find really great people to fill in for those that aren't returning because they graduated college and got a full-time job in what they're doing, or a million other reasons why they may not be coming back.
Thank you. Next question. With a huge number of hospitality professionals seeking work after opening, how will you approach hiring people who are a good fit for your club? And where do recent grads fall into this mix?
Yeah, so really challenging time, only because in our organization right now, we'd probably be bringing on 2 or 3 interns from hospitality programs for the summer. And with the significant uncertainty of what we can and can't do, we're struggling with being able to do that. And so, for recent grads, I think I would say keep the faith and don't be afraid to do something simple to get your foot in the door in an organization, because I think you're going to see things recover quickly, and those that get their foot in the door and show themselves well will find opportunities to advance very rapidly. So, I would suggest, don't be discouraged if that, senior or that good management job isn't the first thing you have to take right now if you're graduating, to get your foot in the door at a great organization. And just know that a leadership role is coming as soon as they can expand again. So I think that's what I would say to that. For us, we always try to hire to attitude, train the skills, right? So for me, it's all about finding the right people. Having passionate employees is really, really important to me. I've done a ton of employee passion surveys at various organizations over the years, and look to quasi-behavioral interview people to identify those that are the right fit for your organization, whether it's that or it's Talent Plus and Optimus Talent Partners that has a really great screening tool to kind of make sure that the person's a right fit. So I think culture is really, really important, and attitude is really, really important. And so those are the first things we're going to look for. And oftentimes we'll hire the less experienced employee that has the right attitude over the really experienced employee that we don't think culturally will fit with us.
Okay. So there's multiple questions within this one question, or one from one of the students, but I'm going to start with the first one. So is it fair to say that what makes one club stand out from another is location, the geographic features unique to that area, tapping into the emotional connection with your members? Understand the psychology perspective, what the client wants. So is that part of what you personally think, what makes one club versus another club?
Sure. So clubs, just like employees, right? Clubs are all about culture. So we're looking for members that kind of fit. So Riverton is it's a really family-based, very inviting culture. It's, I have a lot of business owners, so it's not, we're not an exclusive club full of people that are all executives. We have those people that are members here, but that's not all of who we are. We're more people who want to be a part of a family or a community, and that's really what matters to us. And so we do look at that. We think that our location for us is great in that we're really close to Center City. We can be to Center City, Philadelphia in 15 minutes, but we're in an area where there's almost no traffic near the club, and it's very easy to get around. So the person can get across a bridge from Center City in about 5 minutes, and once they get there, they're 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 15, and they're at the club. And we think that's a great advantage to us for the person that's a Center City employee that's looking for something to escape and get away in the middle of the day, which is often what people try to do, or even to host clients in the middle of the day and not fight. The reality of fighting traffic on the other side of the bridge to get out to the suburbs of Philadelphia is much more challenging than it is for them to come across the bridge and come up through New Jersey. So we think those things benefit us, but we really look for that the prospective member comes in front of the membership committee for an interview, and we're interviewing them to see if they're going to fit with us as much as we want them to interview us to make sure they feel like they're going to be comfortable joining the club before we'll admit them into the organization.
Okay, thank you. Could you elaborate more on how to build a brand loyalty with members?
I mean, I think Jeff McFadden at the Union League says it best, and I think we all try to mimic it, and we don't always have the resources that Jeff has now. And that is, the answer is yes. Tell me what the question is, right? And so for us, it's really about, we're here to service the members' wants and needs, and any request within reason, we're going to bend over backwards to get it for them. And so it's not unusual for a staff member to run the Wawa to get a pack of cigarettes for somebody who forgot their cigarettes and doesn't want to leave a club in the middle of a round of golf to be able to smoke a cigarette on the golf course. Or, we're shut down right now. People had no access to toilet paper and cleaning supplies and meats and vegetables. And we said, well, we have access to all of that stuff. We'll get it for you at our cost, and we won't make any money for it, because we're really a big family and we do for each other. And so that's the brand loyalty we try to build, is that word together, and we believe the members showed it back by immediately going out and voluntarily writing large checks to support the employees when they knew they were going through a challenge. At the same time as some of them, I mean, I have 5 restaurant owners and 3 bar owners right now that have 0 revenue coming in the door for them, yet they're donating to support the employees of our club as well, while they have no income themselves.
Okay, thank you. Next question. With the current pandemic and limited job opportunities, what advice would you give to recent undergrad students who's interested in the country club segment?
Well, so first and foremost, I would say don't be afraid to travel, because those jobs are a lot different in other parts of the country than they are here, right? So there are parts of Texas and Arizona and Colorado and other places where they're more open than we are here in New Jersey. And I think, you know, I know Virginia, I think, is a little more open than we are in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, but not much. So I would say don't be afraid to travel if there's an opportunity to take an internship or a first job at a place that is available right now. And second, the same thing I said earlier, I think it's really important to not focus on the job title right now. Focus on the organization and the leader you're going to have the opportunity to work with. And I really do believe that as we come back quickly out of the pandemic, clubs will be very successful quickly, and the opportunity to be promoted into a more leadership management type of role will come fast. And those that take that risk and go to work for a company are going to be first in line to get those jobs.
Okay, good advice. This is not a COVID related question. How did you get your early career choices that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so my life story and my career path is an interesting one to me, in that it's nowhere near where I thought it was going to be. So out of high school, I wound up working in a gas station, and they taught me how to be an auto mechanic. And for about 9 years, I made my living turning wrenches and fixing cars, including for a large landscape company. So I worked on 14 vehicles, 3 tractors, and 200 small pieces of equipment for a couple of years. And then I decided to go back to school because I was tired of being on my feet all day, believe it or not, which I still seem to be doing. And I went to school for accounting because I love numbers. So I'm the weird guy who loves to look at numbers and see how they relate to each other and put things in spreadsheets and kind of make them dance and get the results that you're looking for out of them. So I was going to be an accountant, and I got a job in a restaurant to pay the bills while I was putting myself through college to become an accountant, and fell in love with hospitality, and thought I was going to be in the restaurant world forever. I was in fine dining, and at Widener, they said, hey, you should get involved in a student association. And I said, well, I like fine dining. What should I do? And they said, well, private clubs is the thing for you, so you should join CMAA. And kind of the rest is history from there. I was blessed with the opportunity to do my co-op at the Union League of Philadelphia in the summer of 2000 during the Republican National Convention in Philadelphia. So we did about $600,000 in food and beverage in 4 days. And it was a spectacular experience that summer. And I went back to restaurants still thinking that was going to be my future, and realized what I missed most in CMAA was networking, camaraderie, and above all, I'm a reader and I love to learn, and the education and reading opportunities within CMAA were much stronger than they were on the restaurant side. And I got a chance and came back in the clubs, and I've kind of been here ever since. Like everyone else, I was in the right place at the right time. So I worked in a restaurant where members of the club down the road used to come to that restaurant all the time. And when they needed somebody, they went to the GM and said, you should hire this guy away from the restaurant. He's perfect for our club. And then I worked at that club for 4 years. And one of the assistant superintendent's father-in-law was the president of another club down the road. And when they were looking for a GM, he said to his father-in-law, you need to hire this guy to be your next GM. And that's how I got my GM job. And since then, I've been lucky to have a couple of recruiters and other people call me for positions. And that's how I've moved around since then. But it's been a lot of, put your head down, work hard, don't focus on a job title, look at who you're going to learn from, and be willing to accept the opportunity when it comes your way.
Okay. Great story. So that leads me to one of the questions I had that is not on the chat, but it's my question, because you mentioned that you love to read. So what books would you have any advice on books that the students should be reading?
Yeah, so I mean, I love anything leadership, especially military. I have actually sitting on my coffee table at home getting ready to dive into um, Dan Rooney, Folds of Honor, wrote a book, so I'm getting ready to dig into that. I've had a couple of friends who wrote it, said it was really great. Bob Iger's book is a spectacular book to read. I'm a big fish philosophy person, so I love the whole, it's short, it's sweet, but this idea of play at work and enjoy what you do and, is a big thing for me. So I'm a big fish person. I would definitely recommend that book. And then there's the First Break All the Rules and Now Discover Your Strengths series, the Strengths Finder. I think those are a couple of really great books of kind of really teaching you what it's like to manage people, and the understanding that not everybody's the same, and you need to understand that as you're managing people. So those were two great books for me early in my management career that I would definitely suggest any young manager read for sure. And then lastly, if you're a person like me who likes to take all the work on yourself and struggles to ask for help, the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey is a really great book about kind of not putting all the monkeys on your own back and empowering those that work for you to come to you, not just with problems, but solutions.
Awesome recommendations. You got a couple thumbs up, so I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably, if I go back, I can send you a list of 30 that I think are great. And often I'll read them over again. And The Fish is definitely one that for me, I read constantly. And I follow Dina Ebert, who's one of their official educators. I follow her on all of our social media, and she and I chat together all the time. And I just think that's a really great way to manage.
All right, next question. Based on special situations this year, when recruiting recent grads or interns, what will be any different compared to previous years?
So really for us, it's just the uncertainty of when we can get people up to full speed and be able to actually bring people on board. But other than that, I don't think we would change anything, because I think I really enjoy the way we recruit. The pool might be larger that we would be recruiting from if the jobs are less, but we're still going to hold to the same standards of what we're looking for. And I still will go back to this whole idea of, the right attitude, the right personality, and the right cultural fit for the organization is still going to, no matter how skilled somebody else might be, if they don't fit in the organization, it never works. And so I think it would be bad for us, and it would be a poor leadership trait of mine to abandon what works because all of a sudden there's a larger pool of more talented people that may be looking for something today that weren't yesterday. And if those people really won't fit within the culture of who we have here as an organization, it's still not going to be good for the organization as a whole. I think that Michael Jordan quote from his series the other day was something along the lines of talent wins games, and leadership and teamwork, or something along those lines, win championships. Right. And so this idea of the most talented person might win you a couple of points here and there, but having a really strong team is what makes you great.
Okay. What advice would you give someone that gets a management role in a country club that needs revamping? I believe that vision should be discussed throughout the interviewing process, but interviewing and actually putting those visions in place are sometimes different obstacles for a new employee.
Right. So I think, again, I'll go back to Jeff McFadden and I talk a lot. We talked about, impacting culture in an organization. So we've both had the opportunity to be in organizations where that was a key component of when we started. And the fact that you need to understand that shifting a culture in an organization is a slow process, unless you have an organization ready to embrace radical change. So in one organization, I changed 6 employees 35 days into my tenure because it needed radical change. At another one, ultimately 6 people changed, but it was over 9 years because that culture couldn't handle the radical change. It needed a slow shift. And so I think the advice is you should understand what the culture really is like, should do everything you can to do that. So, when I would go interview especially for a GM job and you have an opportunity often to eat in the dining room, you know they're always going to have the best server waiting on you, who's the most positive person, who's happy about working at the organization, and is always going to say the right things. So I try really hard to pay attention to what's happening at all of the other tables in the dining room at the same time. So I try to observe that organization actually in action, because the culture will show itself to you. And then you need to figure out whether, you believe that organization is ready for change at the same rate that you're going to be looking for it. And the answer typically is no, because we all want to get things to the finish line faster than organizations do. So then the last piece is, am I willing to accept it moving slower than I would like it to, as long as it's moving in the right direction and I feel good about where we're headed? And so I think those are the things that you need to be ready to accept. And for someone like me who wants to change everything yesterday and have it be done tomorrow, that's often hard. And, it takes, really, to be honest, for me, it just took getting a little bit older and more mature and realizing that, it wasn't all about me. It was about the entirety of the organization. And I had to bring them along slower than I would like to. And I had to be happy and celebrate that slow change instead of be disappointed in it.
Really good advice. Okay. When hiring someone, how important is a degree?
I could care less.
Okay. Next question.
Now, it depends, obviously, on a job, right? So if I'm hiring a doctor, obviously a degree is really, really important. If I'm hiring a controller, there's definitely some importance to a degree. If I'm hiring somebody who doesn't have a degree but's been doing a job for 25 years at a really high level, I could not care whether or not they have the degree, because they've earned it in actual practical application. If I hire somebody who's young, who's new, and they have a degree, that's definitely more important than someone young with no experience with no degree. So I'll put a little caveat in there that I'm not devaluing degrees. I'm a big secondary education person. I taught and sat on advisory boards. I just think that in unique situations, it shouldn't be the end all be all of why you hire somebody.
Got it. Okay, so that ends like the actual Q&A. I don't have any more actual questions in the chat box, but just for the sake of time, I wanted now just thank Joe for your time, especially knowing what you have after our call and dealing with opening your tennis and getting ready to go from 2 to 4 golfers on your course starting Friday. But we'll ask you to stay around for a couple more minutes in case anybody still wants to stay on and actually just talk with you. Is that okay, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I can share that. I don't know if I could share it as a presentation, but I think my email is on the PowerPoint. So let me. Can you see my email on there? Ruth, you're muted.
Okay, so how if I'll also put this in the chat box as well. That way anyone that wants to grab it, they can put it in the chat box.
That'd be great. And I will actually, I'll put in, if you don't mind, I can put in the chat my cell phone number. So I want everyone to be, and you have it if you want to put it in there. I'm very accessible. I'd like to be accessible to anybody who has any questions or comments or concerns or advice, or you're looking for a job. If I'm not hiring, I'm fortunate in the role that I sit on the national board to know people all over the country, and I'm more than happy to share your information around.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to stop recording, and that way, if anyone wants to stay on, you're more than welcome to ask Joe any questions that you have.